Good to go. All right. Welcome. Thank you. Yes, to the very first BridgeLab Fireside Forum. This is an opportunity to bring in success stories of creative entrepreneurs out in the community, recent alumni, people that I find inspiring in some way. And I would like to present a space that you can network and meet and have a conversation with somebody that's a working artist right now out in the community. And our first guest today is the wonderful Renee Hartig, and we have known each other for almost 5 years. I have shown her work, I think, 3 times?
I think so, yeah.
3 times at my store, which is Radish Underground in the West End, and she actually does have a show there right now and will be running through January. And I think Renee is both so talented and so prolific and successful as an artist, but you're also one of the most professional artists I've ever worked with, and putting your shows up and interacting with you has been such a joyful experience. I would love your perspective on how you've sold in galleries all the way through these large craft shows that we were talking about a little bit before, and the way you price your work for different venues is very different, of course.
Definitely.
And the way you present it and how you build your audience. There's a lot of things that we can talk about that I think Renee can really have a great perspective for you guys to be aware of. So I would love for you to give us a little bio about yourself, kind of where you come from,
Sure.
how you got your start, some influences, just an introduction in your own words.
Yeah. Well, I graduated from Kendall College of Art and Design, which is in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And to be totally honest, we had nothing like this, not even close. I mean, you graduated from college and you had no idea how to market yourself in any way besides going to a gallery and asking to be represented. And obviously, you guys know a gallery is going to take around 50% no matter what. But I just understood that to be the only life that was ahead of me. When I graduated, I had 1 landscape painting class, and I absolutely loved it. And honestly, it was a wonderful thing for me to be able to do the switch from really highly conceptual work to something I just wanted to paint, something I really loved and found interesting. So I started, as soon as I graduated in May, I started doing landscape paintings, and somewhere, a couple months in, I thought, oh, do I want to do another body of work? Do I want to do something else? And really, that's the first huge hurdle, is making a decision on what you want to paint and being very consistent with it. Because as soon as you go to a gallery and you ask them to represent you, they want consistency. If they looked at this batch of work and they're asking you to send a batch of work, they better be pretty similar in style. So that was the first difficult thing I kind of encountered. The next is I was living in Michigan, and the economy there is not great. So I was taking any job possible. I did murals, which are just soul-killing. I personally, other people can absolutely love them. I did, design my business card here, and will you paint my child, and will you do this and that, and it's great because you're doing what you want to be doing, but only part of that time. And already when you're working on starting a business, that's 30% of your time right off the bat. And that has nothing to do with creating the work. That's just marketing and networking and everything. So I decided to move to Portland. I had never been here before, but a friend of mine really liked it. He had come here for 2 days. So we sold all of our stuff, and we bought 2 one-way tickets to Portland 6 years ago and haven't left. So I'm so glad it worked out here. But honestly, that was a huge hurdle for me, just getting here and being able to work in Portland. You guys have so much available to you. I just started saying yes to boutiques and coffee shops. I just never said no. Anyone who wanted me to donate a painting, anybody who wanted my work up somewhere, it didn't matter. And I would also go into nicer districts like the Pearl and just start going into coffee houses and just ask, say, oh, this is my business card. Do you guys ever hang work up on a month-to-month basis? And usually now I plan about a year out. So that is something huge, and you guys could go and do that right now. You could go and say, I want to do, if you only have small work, then pick a small coffee shop. If you only do really large things, pick something with some space. And you can talk, they don't care. They don't want to know that I have my bachelor's degree. They don't care. They just want to look at the art, and if they love it, they'll show your stuff. So.
And how long have you been full-time working and selling your art to support your living?
Well, I started 8 years ago. which basically I'm in business for myself.
So you're a solo prop?
I am.
Okay,
Yep.
So she's
sole prop. Yep. I basically, what that means is, if you are going to take on employees or if you're going to change your business name to something other than your name, then you need to get an EIN number, and
which is your employee identification number. That's
Yep.
We'll start talking about
Yep.
that later in the year with some of the BridgeLab
Yes.
lessons around business structure.
Yes.
If you are planning on having more elaborate business than
Yeah.
running yourself as the service that you provide, which Renee is an example of the sole proprietorship,
Yeah.
where she herself is her business name and she runs her work
way easier.
that way.
Way easier. I mean, basically, the only thing you have to do is, I think it's Schedule C. When you fill out your taxes, you have to start putting in what you've made in your business and the expenses that you've had, and that's how you're a business. If you're your own name, you just file under your SOCH.
Right, and there's something I want to note about that
Yes.
in relation to this is the end of the series for our holiday art sale preparation, which most of you guys know, but for those that are listening, and the keeping track of your expenses is such an important habit to get into,
Yes.
regardless of what you end up doing with the work in the
Yes.
long run. It gives you a really excellent window into what's coming out of your pocket to produce the work that you're
Definitely.
producing. Any kind of work for
Yes.
any venue, for any topic, whatever you're
Yes.
working on. It's good to just be keeping lists of your expenses in general to get a picture of what it takes to do what you're doing.
Yep.
And you found that to
And
be
in the
very
beginning,
helpful.
absolutely. Actually, you know what? I went down to the bank and I made 2 separate accounts. I have a business account that also has my savings, and then a personal account that has absolutely no money in it, because really you should keep everything in the business. You're not really supposed to be paying yourself if you are transferring money. But honestly, that's what you do, because then you can just log on and you can see all of your expenses right there, and taxes are so much easier.
Definitely.
Because
And
it is really tough.
It's really tough, and we
Yeah.
will have a specific BridgeLab lesson in March, so right before tax
Yeah.
time in April, around
Great.
doing taxes as artists. So
Yeah.
we are going to be bringing in more programming to support teaching you guys how to do that before you get out.
Yeah.
And on that note of keeping track of your expenses, did you keep notes of your trial and error experience when you were going out to all of these galleries and coffee houses and boutiques, and you were really throwing a lot against the wall to see what stuck as far as the kind of places you wanted to sell your work? Did you have a sort of a system, or did you come away with maybe some tips or suggestions as they
Yeah.
go on this path
Sure,
themselves?
sure. I mean, some of it is just more common sense. Some of it is just people. I mean, if I meet someone, like you were saying, if I say I'm going to be at a certain place at a certain time, and that person doesn't come through on their end, right away in my mind it's like, check, I'm not doing this again. I don't have 5 minutes to waste. I don't have 10 minutes to waste. You need to be on time. I'm on time. So that's part of it to me, just like a personal thing.
You're so good at that, and I can't emphasize
That
enough
is the
how
biggest part of
that's
running
so
a
important.
business. You have to be on time and you have to get back to people. I mean, I wrote that like a ton of times on here. Look professional, have a professional space.
Yes.
Something, even if it's out of your home, make it a professional area that you could bring clients in, and it's, something that you can show other people that are going to commission you a lot of money, But yeah, definitely. I mean,
Communication is
I
really
reply to
important.
emails within 24 hours, and that is
Huge.
the longest amount of
So
time
important.
I ever take to reply to an email. And how many people are like, oh wow, thank you so much for getting back to me, because they've had the experience where they've contacted artists and they're not getting back to them, for 1, 2, 7 days. I mean, actually now I've been on the buying end of art and not had artists ever get back to me, and I'm like, what is happening here? How are you making? I just want to buy a painting,
Yeah.
and you won't get back to me.
It's so important. I think we want to emphasize this point, because as professional practice, the more you can set yourself up to be reliable and consistent, the more successful you will be. Period. Does not matter what you are doing. If you are consistent, you're communicative, and you're aware, you are not. If you're coming to a boutique, you're not
Yeah.
coming in at 5 o'clock on a Saturday when things are complete chaos and trying to have a conversation. You're being present and aware to what situation you're in, and you're
Definitely.
always really consistent about talking and communicating with whoever you're engaging in business or just a personal relationship with. But it's so important, because I think artists assume that there's this mystique to being an
Yeah.
artist that allows you a little leeway in terms of the way that you present yourself and communicate. But really, you're falling into a big trap if you let yourself be part of this big lump of artists that we just assume are going to be unreliable.
Right.
Bottom line. And that's not what we want. We are professionals at what we do. We are consistent, and this is something you do so well.
And the clients don't have time for that.
Right.
Honestly, now it's not, you don't have time to be like slacking off and doing things, because if someone emails me and they say they're asking about a certain painting, guess what? They could change their mind tomorrow. Their kids may need new shoes, and there's a lot of other things that come before them buying a painting, So for me, I feel like they want it now. I'm getting the information to them now, and that's, one thing you were saying that I would love to stress is not only, is this all important to get back to people and stuff, but it's the image of you. And when people are buying your artwork, they absolutely see that every day, and every day they look at it, they think of the experience they had when they bought that from you. I don't care if it's this $50 thing or if it's a $2,000 painting. I mean, it's absolutely true. I actually, I've always believed that, but recently I bought this painting, and the experience, the painting is awesome, it's wonderful, but the experience wasn't. And I am telling you, every day I tell myself, no, Renee, you really love the painting. Stop thinking of the artist, because, and it stays with you. Every day I see that painting, I think, oh, that's great, and I don't like her.
Right. But the opposite is true. If you see something that you like and you love the interaction, you've built an audience member you'll have for life.
Yes. And every time someone asks about it, I'm always like, oh my gosh, this artist is so great. She lives in Seattle, and I'm all of a sudden just advertising for her instead of the opposite way. So just remember that the way you look, the way you present yourself, I'm not saying you need to dress up, but just look professional and clean and
thoughtful.
Just thoughtful, right, and just courteous, and yeah, absolutely. People do not have the time now to wait a week to get a response, because they're moving on.
Yeah, the world moves too quick.
It does.
So to come back to a little bit about the holiday art sale, I would love to know a little bit more about your process when it comes to pricing your work.
Sure.
A gallery situation is kind of its own animal, and it's not what the holiday art sale is about. This is definitely a sale, large group format, very different. It's a sale versus a show, but you have experience in both venues. So could you give a little bit about the gallery, but then how that differs and more of your process for a show like Crafty that's coming up?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I produce a ton of work, which actually this is my last week in producing, because I paint oil, so it's like about 2.5 weeks to dry. So right away you have to be ahead of the schedule, because I can't be doing anything last minute. But I do a ton of work under $50, and I do a ton of work under $100, basically, is the most important thing. Because when people walk up, I always say to myself, don't give anybody a reason to walk away from here without buying something. And the youngest person I've had buy a little painting of mine was an 8-year-old girl who was decorating her room. And she went through all of them, and she picked out this painting, and she's so excited about it. And I thought, you know what? That's why I want to do these shows, because you're reaching an audience that isn't the 30-sums, 40-sums, and older who can afford large paintings. You're hitting the group that will be those people someday, and you want them to be your clients. And if they have a small painting of yours, and, I just feel like start really low. I sell, my smallest painting is on paper, and it's $15. And yes, they'd have to go and frame it, but it's a 4x6. Go to IKEA. Go anywhere. A 4x6, you can get that anywhere. So for $15, somebody can buy a painting, original, take it home. That to me is like, that's a business card. It's in one more home. They maybe can't afford, a $2,000 painting, but they can't afford something small. So,
and you're building toward the audience that can afford your higher price point, more unique.
In the gallery, of course.
Absolutely.
That is like, well, I start at, sending them probably 150 and over. A gallery, well, they are doing the work for me. I don't have to sell it myself. But for the smaller venues like this, I think, keep them small and don't start pricing it. I started with I think an 8x10 painting. I started at $10 when I first moved here, 7 years ago. And that is how I made it. I made it from doing a lot of paintings and selling a lot of paintings. And then those people took my business card and they contacted me for commissions, and it just starts to snowball. You want to get your paintings in not just paintings, I'm sorry. I get
that's
so
your
focused.
Expertise, sure.
Yeah, you want to get your artwork in as many homes as possible. So, if someone comes and they love your work, I give people discounts. I'm like, well, or if you're my returning client, they're kind of on the fence, and right away I'm like, you know what? Well, this will be 10% off. We've worked together before, and I mean, I just feel like the more people, the better.
More people, the better. And I want to stress the point there too that you aren't putting your work out for public consumption on sale. You're creating a relationship with someone specific by giving them incentive, by saying, I have a relationship with you. I want to continue that. I want to give you a little extra value. I'm going to give you my special friends and family discount, or however you say that. You can still massage the pricing a bit to build your audience, and the way that you do that is very important. I want to ask you one more quick question before we open up to questions to the audience.
Yes.
You mentioned about the 8-year-old girl that bought your piece of art, and we talked a little bit earlier today about the shift in support of the arts in primary education.
Yes.
And how there is a sense of responsibility for working artists right now to be just that, a working artist, not fall into the starving artist mythology that is slowly killing the culture. We really want to get out and reach the younger audience. Do you have any other tips or suggestions or experience with getting your work out to that younger crowd, or ways that we can help support that as a higher education and art and design school?
I do a lot of different shows and festivals and things like that, but I also do the Portland Open Studio Tour, which honestly, I've had a lot of families come. There was a ton of people that brought their children, and they wanted to know what I'm doing, how I'm doing that, and look at the painting and, play with the paint a little bit. And just, for some kids, they literally don't have an art class until high school. I can't imagine
so different from what we grew up with.
So it's wonderful. But also, like you were saying with, working with clients and everything, how many times, this woman and her child are there, and she bought a painting of mine, and the little girl is like holding on to this little one, and I'm like, take it, it's yours. Like, that's just for you. It's all about building relationships with these people, and if they love you, they will come back to you.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah, but I don't, that's a really good question. I know that there's a lot of people that approach me about doing classes.
Yeah.
And going to schools and things like that. I honestly just do not have the time.
Right now.
I don't have the time to go in and start and be teaching people, right? Yeah.
Sure. Well, that's something that we could consider. That
I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, and BridgeLab is in talks. We're a very new program here at PNCA, but we are in discussion about the best ways that we can bridge not only out to the business community as resources, but back into our social community and reaching some of these kids in that way.
Yeah.
So, first of all, I just want to say thank you again so much for being here. And if you do want to sign up for Renee's once a month email list, it is right up here on the table on your way out. And that way you don't have to memorize the dates I'm about to tell you. She is going to be showing at Radish Underground, which is at 414 Southwest 10th in the West End, through January, if you'd like to see a full show. She'll also be at the Laurelhurst School Winter Bazaar, December 8th, and the Crafty Wonderland sale at the Convention Center, which is December 14th and 15th.